they proclaim their vision, like, I love this. And the first people that come out when they hear that is the village idiots. They always come out first, right? They're like a heckle at what you're doing, like, oh, you're so stupid, you shouldn't do that. You go do this, do that. Oh, you're dumb, like you're never gonna amount to anything. I actually heard a saying somewhere, and fact check this, but I was told that a single human being is hit with at least 40,000 ads on a daily basis, right? Those are things coming from pop-up, text messages, voicemails, emails. We get so many of them, and there's an abundance of things to capture nowadays. I actually have a drawer full in my kitchen of mail that I haven't read through yet. So you too. That's right. And I think that's the point. We have so much to capture. Let's organize this. And the best way to organize it is to make it easy, bite-sized chunks that applies to you, right? I think that's why AI is doing so great nowadays, right? You can say your problem, you get a solution like that. That's meant for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean, you've been using it to organize your stuff, haven't you? Like AI is incredible at the O and the D of distilling ideas, but also organizing. I took this email where someone did the dreaded like CC 50 people, and I copied all of it. You know, it's in that ugly format with the arrows, and I put it into ChatGPT, and I'm like, put this into 3 columns, first name, last name, email, and it in a table format that I can just put it into a CRM. Because I mean, it's great.
Seriously, and I'm loving that. So if anything, we want to make this as easy for you or for the listener to find an epiphany around the idea that they're looking for. And then if we need it, transcribe and pop into ChatGPT to take it further for yourself. But if anything, we are actually doing that for you, right? We're going through the prompts, we're finding problems that we are at in our phase, as well as those behind us and those further ahead of us. I'm trying to organize that so that way it's valuable for everyone. If anything, we should jump right into it, talking about some of the ideas that we're facing, right? Yeah. We're currently in, if you're familiar with the Billionaire Code, which we will highlight soon. But if inside that, there's what that Billionaire Code by Alex Sharfin explains is there's a journey from beginner all the way up into mega investor, right? We're talking about like you have billions of dollars, Billionaire Code, hence the name. And there's these phases that's broken down that's going to show you what steps are needed to survive that phase, but if you need to graduate to the next phase, right? And Noah and I are kind of in, I would say, phase number 2, phase number 3, where we're making money financially, right? We're more than ever before. Now we've got a lot of tasks and we're at that bottleneck that's keeping us from the next step, right? So we're highlighting this journey. We're going to explain what we're seeing in this field and expand upon that. So that way anyone in this phase can kind of relate to us and use the resources that we're using and testing it on your behalf. So that way there's a win-win for everyone. And hopefully you get ahead of us and you can pull us up in the future, right? But for now, that's where we're at. So where would you want to start, Noah? Where would you want to start?
I think it begs to ask kind of our working thesis, our North Star vision, whatever you want to call it, with Success Open Source, and especially as it relates to technology. You know, so I know the concept originated with you, and we both started building synergy over the last couple of years, just behind the scenes. What's it mean to you?
Man, I'd say on my side, there's always the origin story, right? What's that one thing that kicked things off and pushed us in that direction? And for me, I think I highlighted to you already. I was in that position where I was given, you can say, a huge opportunity at the age of 17. I think, remember that story I mentioned about me owning a nightclub at the age of 17 before you know. And if anything, I can run right through it and then explain it so that way the rest of the world can be enlightened by this epiphany, and then we can circle back and hear yours. But on my side, I like last 3 months before graduating high school, I did the dumbest thing a teenager would do, right? I said, my mom gave me the opportunity to say, hey, we're moving. You can stay here for the last 3 months and graduate with your class that you've been with for nearly 4 years, or we can move with us now and go to the new city, right? And I said, let's move to the new city. Dumbest thing you can do. I mean, I was the biggest loner in that city, but we had to move. We moved. right? I was at that point, I was the outcast, I was the outsider, not knowing anyone there. But what I did notice was there was a buzz, right? The new kid in school, oh, he has a different style, he dresses different. What's going on, right? And all that buzz was like, I started noticing it. People were telling me as I'm walking, like, hey, they're talking about you, they're saying things about you, and I said, I want to take advantage of that, right? What's that? All that what? Let's see if I can do something with it. So coming from my city to another city, I said, well, I'm really big at parties. I was in a party crew in the old city. So I said, I'm going to bring that idea to this city and see if I can kind of capture that noise. So I went on Canva, right? And I edited a quick, using technology to edit a quick landing, a flyer, right? And this was like the most ghettoest flyer. I might even show it somewhere. It was super ugly, but it worked. I sent that to a friend, which just starts spreading like wildfire. No one's ever seen that. I mean, like the new city we moved to, their biggest thing was grapes, right? Now you bring a party to a great town, it was totally different. And it spread like wildfire. Before you know it, I had like 200 people who said, yo, like, I want to go to this. Let's see. And they're texting it. They're doing all these things to opt in. And I said, okay, well, I got some traction. Let me get all the stuff needed. So I went to a local, a broken down movie theater, and I said, I'm gonna use this place as a venue. So I struck a deal with the venue owner since it was broken down, and he ripped me off. He says, I'll give you 30% of that overall night success, and he takes 70%. I'm like, well, I need a place, so yes, sign that dotted line. Then after that, I had a friend of mine that says we need speakers. He introduced me to his uncle who owned a furniture shop that had speakers. He lent me the speakers. Then the last thing I needed was a DJ. I tried learning on my own, but I sucked at it, right? I found someone on the radio station. I called them. I got him to come on consignment, right? At the end of the night to make money. So he comes in. I had all the pieces in play, right? Pretty much it was a boy with long hair and a vision, right? And they said, I'm in, right? So they all come in that night. And it was crazy. That first night, I made, I thought maybe like 200 people would come. Maybe I thought the drop-off rate, maybe 100 people, maybe 50 people. But lo and behold, I show up to that venue and there was a line wrapped around the entire venue, 300 people in line waiting to come in. And I was like, yo, this is amazing. $10 a head. Oh my gosh, 3,000 that one night, right? Of course, a big percentage went to the venue owner and everyone on consignment. But I went home with $900. And I told my mom, I did this. And she said, honey, are you selling drugs? I'm like, no, mom, that was last year. I'm kidding. No drugs at all, I promise. But it was at that point I realized, like, if you have a dream, you have the resources in front of you and the determination to ask others for the ask, you can make things happen, right? So that's kind of what brought me to this point today, where we found way more than $900. Noah helped me do some amazing things. So, and I think that story alone kind of prompted us to share that with the world. So that way, no one else has to resort to drugs to make money, but rather use technology to help them win, right? And use an idea to run with it. So I'd love to hear yours, Noah, your story. What got you started on all of this?
That story still never gets old. I love the fact that you let an idea go further than just an idea. Like it actually became a belief. And that's what we talk about this all the time. Like, you know, in the media world, those who control the content control belief, because everything we're taking in is content, and what we receive becomes beliefs. And there's that's a rabbit trail into who you surround yourself with, all that good stuff. And like you started to surround yourself with people who wanted to give you a chance, and now you're held accountable to that thing, your vision. So I just love that aspect of it. And I think I can relate in a lot of ways, just in this journey of trying to have the right beliefs and fight for the belief that big things are possible. But I think it does start back for me too, at that early age. And so much of it, looking back now, it's funny how technology has been this fascination of mine, of like how we live with it. At an early age, I don't know if people remember the old iPod touches. I mean, I'm sure there's people that remember pre-iPod days, but like I just thought that was the greatest thing ever when I was young. And I get that iPod touch and I found out about jailbreaking. I'm like, I can jailbreak this thing and like put this repository on here and unlock new potential, right? And I remember trying it for the first time, might have been the first time, and I actually like froze the thing. Like my iPod was frozen. I was like, dang, man, I'm screwed. Like I'm gonna have to tell my parents I ruined my iPod. Well, I ended up sending it back. Then I got a new one. Didn't stop me. I'm like, I'm gonna jailbreak this thing. And then when I did it, it was the coolest thing ever. I was just like, wow. Like I felt like I was like, unlocking something that people don't know was there. And then so you go on with that, and I head into college, and I choose computer science just because I think it was looked like a profitable path, and I like computers, I like technology, started learning code, and thought that was cool. But I also love storytelling. I also at 18, I had a buddy who was a rapper in high school, and he wanted to shoot music videos, and I had another buddy who had a camera, and he wanted to be his like manager. Big dreams as an 18-year-old. You're like, dude, rap, because I love hip hop. And so I just pick up the camera and start recording, right? I'm like, I get into editing and like visuals. I'm like, this is sick. And then so it's funny how the two collided in college as I started making some money with the camera. Started building some websites, and I'm like, oh, that I don't have to travel. I can make money with my fingers. And hyperspeed from there. Really got married in college. Found out we were pregnant. My wife's last semester. About to have a baby we weren't ready to have, about to buy a house we had no business buying. We talk about this all the time. That's why my hair's gray, and I'm we're both fighting that receding hairline. But ultimately, as all these responsibilities come on, I had to start looking to technology. I had to start looking to help. I'm like, my wife wants to stay at home. How do I make this happen? Right. So AI was not around like it is now. I mean, it was, I'm sure it was brewing in the back of things. But ultimately, the first hit of like outsourcing something to someone and it got done without me for a client, I was like, this is beautiful. I was like hooked. Even though it was like a person, I'm like, man, I got that. I'm like, okay, I can expand. It's not just all reliant on my time. And then you mix into that with the fact that I was just about to have a baby, and I'm like, I don't want to, you don't want to build your life in the wrong direction. Or like one of my biggest fears that I feel like people can maybe relate to is living your life and then realizing you put your ladder up the wrong wall. Or maybe another way of putting it, that you just drifted. You get 10 years down the road, you're like, how did I get here? This is not where I wanted to be. Because you weren't intentional. And so like that infused with like, okay, how do we relate with technology? And I think this kind of full circle success open source and our kind of a vision here is, I think in this age of digital renaissance where like potential is there to be lean and mean and create incredible impact and be a digital entrepreneur. I think when we leverage technology well, and like artificial intelligence as it's now upon us, it's not going away. It actually creates more technology-free moments and like personal interactions. And so I think if we can find out how to do that in this journey and share our experiences along the way, that'll help us live that intentional life that we don't look back with regret. And we're like, oh, technology served its purpose in that, but it wasn't the thing that we got lost in. Does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense. I think that's the first time I heard the entire origin story from scratch. So that's awesome. If anything, it's funny because you mentioned several things that kind of relate to what I experienced, which is people helped you induce an idea, right? And then you start playing around and moving further with it, right? You mentioned you jailbreak the iPod, and then you jailbroken productivity, right? I was able to get the job done without me. That's the jailbreak right there. That not everyone knows about. I'll tell you that right now. I've had a lot of friends who were I met actually a CEO of mine, a friend of mine, who's never ever heard of like a virtual assistant, and to help them get some of that mundane work done. And he was young, of course. He was like the youngest CEO I've ever met. He was like 22, the CEO of a company at 22. Right? And he making dumb money, but never heard of like offloading his work to someone else. And the fact that we could have actually helped him during that time would have made a huge difference. But nowadays it might be too late. But other than that, man, like hearing your story is amazing, man. I'm super excited to start sharing some of the things that we're experiencing, especially when offloading this work and using technology to make a difference. for everyone.
For sure, man. For sure. No, it's like in to that point of like, maybe it's too late, maybe it's not. It's like, I think we're both confronted with this, just early on in our journey still. It's like, you can't always call where it's going to go, but like, if we can focus on discipline and direction, and not being too spread too wide, shooting too many things. But I think that's a whole other episode of like, how do you know if you're just shiny object or you're just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks?
No, that's true. That is so true. And if anything, I like to circle the same, knowing that we shared our story of where we are at and where we're hoping to go. And we highlighted what we hope to do with this, right? Ultimately is to share our journey, to show other entrepreneurs who are doing something similar to us. In this case, what are we doing exactly? We're teaching people how to become an attractive character, so that way they can get more attention, which will then convert into sales in the long run if you can nurture those relationships that are coming in. I remember hearing from Simon Sinek. He says, whenever someone finds that stroke of inspiration, whether it be health, like I love health, I want to be a fitness guru, or I love computers yourself, I want to become a hacker, right? The first thing they do is they go on top of the building and they proclaim their vision, like I love this. And the first people that come out when they hear that is the village idiots. They always come out first, right? They're like heckle at what you're doing, like, oh, you're so stupid, you shouldn't do that. You go do this, do that. Oh, you're dumb, like you're never gonna amount to anything. But if you do that long enough, right? If you proclaim or like let everyone know what you're about, you plant that flag. After a while, the village idiots will always be there. They're never gonna go away. But the wise counsel will step out and say, hey, you know what? I like what that guy's about. Let me share my resources with him, and then go about, maybe help him move further, right? We'll work together. So I think that's the big vision that we want to do. We want to show you that, hey, regardless of where you're at, whether you're in software, coaching, whatever you're doing, we want to let you know that there's a formula to that success, right? Standing out, whether introverted or extroverted. If anything, Noah's more introverted. I'm extroverted. We did our Myers-Briggs test, or the 16 personalities. We found that out. So we're giving the best of both worlds, regardless of where we're at. We're able to show you this is what you would need to do in order to stand out, make a name for yourself, and then play this long-term game that will convert into sales, which will convert into freedom for you in the long run. So if anything, I think it would be best to start at the bottom of that billionaire code phase. And what's that thing that I think one step behind us, right? Because we're kind of, we're like step 3, maybe step 2. But what's that first step? And what do you have here today? I know you have a screenshot here of some of these options here, but I wonder, where do you want to go with this first?
I think it's a beautiful point to start there at the bottom, because it sounds very missional and anchored. And why? Like, ultimately, I think if we want that discipline in our lives, what I'm learning is you have to cultivate that desire, and it's not going to come unless you have one, radical responsibility over like no matter what comes, you're responsible for how you respond to it. And then if that's anchored in a strong why, like just keep asking why. It's kind of like, in our sales roles and experiences, I've heard it said, it's like, if you just feel lack of motivation to pick up the phone or send that message, your fear of rejection, it's like asking your why deep enough to where you have that strong enough foundation of why it is that you want to even pursue that avenue or that business. Like, you know what I mean? The actual impact you're going after. Like, I'm kind of in this mode lately where I'm like, make cliches great again, because we've gotten bored of the boring stuff that works really well.
No, that's the truth.
You feel me? Like we're what people used to have to pay thousands of dollars for is now like cheap and accessible. And so we're like, give me more nuggets, give me more morning routine videos, but I'm not actually going to go wake up early. I'm not going to go to bed early. I'm not going to apply the thing. And so it convicts me, right? You have thoughts on that?
No, that is so true that you mentioned that, right? Like, for example, Russell Brunson, his book is $10, right? For the .com secrets, expert secrets. But he says in his $50,000 membership group, he says, the inner circle, who here read my .com secrets book? and maybe like 4 out of the 20 read it. And he says, do you want to know what we're going to talk about here? We're going to talk about everything in that book. It's all really cheap and free and accessible, but it's coming down to it, right? I think like going out and searching for it and applying it. So the cliche, like you said, like those little sayings, do the hard work, right? Or little things like that. That is absolutely true, man. I agree with you 100%. And you mentioned something else before, about like the identity piece, right? Whenever you feel like, I have fear of like doing this next call, or there's these things that you forget to add into your self identity, which is the phase 1 of the Billionaire Code, the seeker. The primary focus is understanding your self identity. Right? Who are you? I'm a business leader. I'm a hustler. I'm a father, a mother, right? Whatever the case is, like that's like the main thing. I think we should scratch right there. There's so many resources on that. So many. Which one? And I want to mention before you start, Noah. Noah is the guy. He's the guy that has all the resources. Any nuggets of information that you want to find about any subject, he has 1 or 2 resources for you. Whether it's a video, whether it's a tool, whether it's a relationship. I don't know. He has a lot. So I want to hear, Noah, the question. What resources would you have in mind that can help someone find out what their self-identity is and how they can expand upon that, make sure they cement that on a daily basis?
It's a really good question. There's so many categories of types of resources, but I think before a resource comes that the thought of identity in general and like where it's found, like where you place it, because ultimately I think the temptation is to place it in what we do. So I think if we can start at the place of like what we do, it's the Atomic Habits, right? That's probably a great one. Let's call it Atomic Habits. That's my go-to recommendation all day, because it's identity-based habits. It's the process of becoming, and if you can realize it's this journey of becoming, not like, am I it now? Because then you're always trying to prove it to yourself. You're just like, no, I'm gonna do the habits that affirm that thing, which I'm a loving person. I'm someone who sacrifices for my family, my wife, or I'm someone who shows up and takes care of my body. Like that's putting the shoes on. Boil it down into the simplest aspects of it. It's just throwing in the tokens, right? Like just trying discipline and direction. I think that's so I'll always go back to Atomic Habits. I think you have too lately, haven't you?
Yeah, no, that's 100%. That's so true. They said every action you do is a deposit into the person you want to be.
Exactly.
And that's really strong, because like at the end of the day, who do you want to be? And I had that struggle for a very, very long time. I think the other day I even told you about it. Like I find my point, I know where I want to go. In 2 days I forget. And I'm like, what is it I want to do again? Right? And I think what's really pushing me now is creating content that's going to help someone else, whether they're behind me or at my level. I think that it excites me more than anything. Right?
Yeah.
So
I think we both love the concept of frameworks, like frames that can work for you, whether it's a perspective or an actual like a tangible framework, like a book that's in a book, and like structured way of how to do something. Those timeless principles plus frameworks that you can actually navigate life with. I think we're just like, that's what we're collecting all the time. And now if we can relay that out or find out how to adapt it to this situation and share that with the world, ultimately, I think that's what's going to help people find success they didn't know was possible. Which put a pin in it. We need to come back a whole episode of defining success, because I don't know about you, but I hear that all the time: success, and no one defines it. Like, sometimes they do, but most times people think in terms of net worth or revenue. And we just throw around success. It's kind of like we throw around the word love without talking about what truly is success. Because I would imagine my internal definition of success probably clashes with a lot of people who are very much, it's rooted in the business world, even though I want to be successful in business.
That is so true. I love that. And that still ties to your self-identity piece. Right? Because when you get into that space of like, this is who I am, and this is what I'm moving toward, knowing that, hey, I'm hitting what I need to do to become successful, that's really what's required. So if anything, I've heard from Earl Nightingale. He says the definition for success is someone who's taking strides into the future the ideal future that they have in mind, right? So if you're a business owner, your ideal future, whatever it is, could be money, it could be freedom. A lot of the times, Tony Robbins says, sometimes when you look for a goal, a lot of the times it's a means to an end. So someone says, I want a lot of money, but really that's a means to an end. What does money really give you that you're wanting so much? What do you feel like, I got to chase money? What for? That's the end goal. And the end goal, a lot of the times for people who are business owners, is freedom, right? Or impact, right? So like, I want more money so I can make more impact for the world, or I want more money so I have more time with my family. So that with tying that back to Earl Nightingale's quote, he says, the successful person is someone who's taking strides into the ideal outcome that they're hoping to achieve. In this case, we're success because we're now getting the resources that we've been gathering for more than a year now, and we're now putting it in front of the people that we desire or we crave to serve, right? So we are a success in this way.
Exactly. I think that's a beautiful way to end this episode, is just that fact that if it's rooted in other people, and like we're finally trying to be more intentional with that, not just like building our thing, but putting it out there so that we can have community around it. And I think that is what fuels us, ultimately going back to the why and purpose, is if there's people benefiting it on the other end, and it's not just the more you get focused on self-growth, I think the more probably bored and like depressed we can be about the why, because we're not seeing people on the other end of it.
No, that is so true. That's so true. So if anything, to recap for myself, to know that what we talked about this episode, which was where we came from, first of all, right? How we got this idea of like, we want to serve the world. And then secondly, we took it down to where we were at before in terms of the self-identity piece, where we were at in the beginning, right? What it takes, or what resources that are highlighted that can help you find that self-identity for yourself, and then how to take that to a successful state, right? I think that's going to be so helpful for a lot of people I know already, right? This is a valuable enough. So I appreciate having this. I look forward to having more of these.
Yeah, me too. Likewise, man. It's like, now let's go apply it, right? We have to go apply it and unlock that collective impact, is what we're saying with Success Open Source. Is let's all do together, make each other better. And, ultimately, if we can hold each other accountable, then it's gonna make a bigger difference, and we're gonna be probably more action heavy with it.
Seriously, I love that. Well, until next week, right? I'll see you soon. You guys have a good one.
Hey, thanks for watching the Success Open Source Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love for you to subscribe and join the community. Until next time, take care, and let's all make success a little more open source.